The purpose of our organization of Afro-American Unity, which has the same aim and objective, to fight whoever gets in our way, to bring about the complete independence of people of African descent here in the Western Hemisphere, and first here in the United States, and bring about the freedom of these people by any means necessary. The Charter of the United Nations, the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, the Constitution of the United States, and the Bill of Rights are the principles in which we believe. Number two, self-defense. The Constitution of the United States of America clearly affirms the right of every American citizen to bear arms. And as Americans, we will not give up a single right guaranteed under the Constitution.
What's up, YouTube? What's up, YouTube? This is Drill Sergeant. Thank you for tuning in to On Your Left with Drill Sergeant Doug. This is a political roundtable, and it's the kind of political roundtable that doesn't suck. That means we don't have liars on here. We don't have people on here just spouting partisan talking points. And if that intro gives you any idea of what's coming next, this one's going to be tough. This one's going to be, let's just say, interesting. And our brave participants today for something as deep as this, for a conversation as deep as this, are going to be, we have an activist, Kelly Kixes, the strong activist, content creator here. We have, of course, a regular here, Jordan Herrera from Missouri's 4th District. We have our Washington insider, who's become quite the regular, Olivia Logan, and she is actually a political strategist. And coming soon, we will have Joel Lava, who is running for Congress in California's 30th District, and he can tell me if I'm wrong. Before we get there, before we speak to them, I got to give you the topic. This is the topic. After seeing America's insatiable appetite, its desire to pray at the altar of white supremacy. If you don't know what I'm talking about the Supreme Court gutting the Voting Rights Act, and almost immediately, nothing ever happens this fast in politics unless it's about stopping black people from voting. Almost immediately, states all around the country, and most recently and fully fledged is Tennessee, right? At the altar of white supremacy, they have prayed, even at the expense of its own laws, at the expense of all of the ideals that they supposedly held so dear. We ask, how are black people ever to believe either one of those? How can we believe in these laws or these ideals ever again? That's a question that needs to be answered, especially if you're looking to have the black vote ever again, or if you're looking to find out something other than what Malcolm X was saying there in the beginning. Because we're coming from the idea that we don't believe you anymore. That's the standard. That's the default position. We don't believe you anymore. And you take that how you will. Hopefully we have candidates, we have thinkers, we have activists who can help contextualize that. The second part of this question is, what should the political left's response be that can reflect this new reality? P.S. Vote harder does not reflect the new reality. P.S. Vote harder does not reflect this new reality. Also, Another Voting Rights Act does not reflect this new reality because we now know that that can be taken away in another 50 years. It's too easy. We have a very hard question. And I think we may have at least some of the people who can answer it.
On your left!
I'm going to let them come up on the stage and introduce themselves, talk about what they do. Let's start with Kelly Kixes, the newest person to the team. How are you doing, my friend?
Oh, I'm okay. I'm in Chicago hanging out.
Hey, that's where I grew up.
Yeah, I love it. I am in Uptown right now. I've been here for a little while. I came out here for the road show to cover candidates and I just like it, so I haven't left yet.
That's what's up. That's what's up. All right, we're going to bring in Jordan Herrera from Missouri's 4th District. How are you, sir? Oh, he's gone? All right, until he comes back. Olivia Logan, how are you?
Hi, I am great. How are y'all?
Excellent. So introduce yourself. Tell the people what it is you do.
Yep, my name's Olivia Logan. I am a political consultant out of DC. I'm originally from Arkansas, though, and have spent a majority of my career working with progressive candidates in red and purple states. So that's my main focus, and down ballots in particular. So school board, city council, state leg, mayoral. And I am continuing that work, even though I am in DC. It's important work to keep doing because without local control, we lose everything.
Yeah, very true. We're going to be talking about that today, trying to find some of these solutions. Jordan, how are you, sir? Tell everybody.
Hey, sir, sorry about that. And I do want to give a precursory apology if I have to take an emergency phone call. Here in the state of Missouri, this is an apropos topic today that we're talking about gerrymandering. The Supreme Court of Missouri is going to hear our case tomorrow, and I am on the phone with the court right now trying to intervene mandatorily as a candidate to assert my rights in a different way to strengthen the argument and hopefully get it defeated here in Missouri. So if I do take a call today, it's from the Missouri Supreme Court, so I apologize.
No, that's
but it
perfect.
is a necessary call for me to take.
Hey, listen, as a matter of fact, as long as I have to stay on, I know everybody may not be able to do it, but I'd love to be a part of that and see what you got. If you can come back afterwards and let me know what your feeling is or what you're hearing, that's something I think that people might need to know. So this is a big topic, guys. As a black man in America, in the South, I am completely pissed. I don't even know, I'm not sure how to go about a round table that can actually get to answers without injecting my rage, my ancestral rage of the blood that was spilt for nothing. I don't believe in the laws. I don't believe in the promise. And these are just the raw emotions. This may change later. I also know that over my dead body will I allow this to stay. So we will be fighting. We will be marching. May 16th, we're going to be in Alabama on the same steps in Montgomery where King gave his speech to get the Voting Rights Act. But I'm going to open the floor and I'm going to be quiet. Give me your ideas on it. Give me your reaction to this. And then we can dive deeper into policy and what needs to be done next. The floor is open.
Who wants to go first?
Go ahead, Kelly. You started it.
Oh, great. Well, I think as far as takeaways go, I'm irate. I'm disgusted. Unfortunately, with the pattern of John Roberts on the Supreme Court, I'm not surprised. Unfortunately, he's made it his mission to attack the VRA for the entirety of his career. He he clerked for Judge Rehnquist, who I'm sure we're all aware was a terrible racist, wrote his own memos about how he believed that Plessy v. Ferguson needed to be upheld, and Judge Roberts found someone who upheld his own personal beliefs in Rehnquist, unfortunately. So when he was confirmed for the Supreme Court, he said the VRA was written law, and obviously, like a lot of these conservative justices, he fucking lied, man. And it's infuriating to see happen. I think the SCOTUS that we have right now with the conservative majority, like people like John Roberts can say that they're not political animals as much as they want to, but ultimately they're upholding a conservative agenda that's, been impacted by personal vendettas, much like this, but ultimately serves the same goal, and that's to disenfranchise Black, brown, marginalized voters in the country to the political benefit of the GOP.
I think it's also, it's sad that this is a recurrent pattern with Republican politicians, how they seem to court minority votes to get elected, and then immediately, I don't want to say like this feels a lot like Bury My Heart at Wounded Knee, but it does. I mean, that's the story of America, is Bury My Heart at Wounded Knee. Change the demographic that's been harmed, and it's the same story over and over and over, where people have trusted and believed that they could believe in a future together, a compromise, a neighborliness, some kind of community, that we could do this together. And then once that trust is given, it's betrayed. I've seen this, not just with Black Americans, but with Native and Indigenous populations, Hispanic folks, Asian Americans, Japanese Americans, Islamic Americans. We've seen all of this play out over and over and over. And under Louisiana versus Calais, the destruction of minority and majority districts, for me, in a state like Missouri, this is destructive. This means that, when we did have two closely held blue seats, one in Kansas City and one in St. Louis. Now, they didn't touch the county or the congressional district over in St. Louis because it was held as a minority district. With this change, that changes our landscape in Missouri entirely. It could be an 8-0 red state, even though 40% of the electorate votes Democratic. In our state, what I've had to do is tell folks, you need to register voters in massive, massive numbers. And it's not just going out indiscriminately and getting voters to register at malls and things like that. You need to target the communities. You need to show up at the polls. So in my community, we have historically Black neighborhoods and Hispanic neighborhoods. I need those folks to show up. That's where I'm going to be at, getting as many folks to register to vote. I'll be making sure that we get the right voters in the ballot box, because in a state like Missouri, we also have a problem where anywhere between 800 and over 1 million citizens are not registered to vote.
Thank you.
So as much as we're talking about the VRA being hollowed out, and it has been, we also have to do the hard work now that, generations before us did, which is get out there, organize. First is register people, then educate them. Right? Educate them where their polling places are going to be, what the dates are going to be, what their voter ID requirements are going to look like. Because guess what? Women are doing the preparation work today of getting their birth certificates and passports ready. I haven't heard very many men talk about that. Have you guys?
Nope.
Yeah. Well, men are still voters. You're still going to need to prove your citizenship. So I'm not telling any conservative men this, but definitely I'm telling every liberal man, go and get your birth certificate or a passport today. You need to have those documents ready. Even if it's not going to happen with the SAVE Act, be prepared. We don't know what's coming next. And if you're not going to be prepared today, you're going to lose tomorrow.
And these are completely responsible reactions. Okay.
Well, I have irresponsible reactions as well. I just can't show you right now.
Well, the idea
Actually,
is
you'd be proud of me. I said the F word 2 days ago on a recording because I was so heated up. I was just done. I had been interviewed for like 6 hours, Doug, and I was just done. I let an F-bomb drop.
Oh man, they finally I'm very proud of you. I've been trying to get it out of you. We got you close before. We got you close last time.
Yeah, so I'm unfortunately not surprised that any of this is happening. I mean, historically, this has been an issue in the past, but also it's in Project 2025. So if anyone read over it, we knew that they were coming after voting rights across the board if you weren't a straight white Christian man. You're on the menu eventually. And this is going to be something that's not resolved overnight. We're going to have to, I mean, it's probably going to be another, 30, 40, 50 years before we undo all of the damage that has been done in less than 2 years, unfortunately. I just don't see a quick fix to this, which is very unfortunate. And even the Democrats are not presenting themselves as a proper opposition party right now.
Talk about it, please.
Yeah.
I know this is the most aggressive roundtable people have ever been on, but I'm just reflecting the reality.
Yeah. And right now,
God.
the Democratic Party, I mean, even I was panicked the first few weeks of the new administration because while, yes, the Democrats are a minority party, they have a voice and they chose not to use it. And they chose to point out that we're the minority party. We can't do anything, blah, 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 blah. And it took forever and it took people getting enraged for them to like halfway do something. And I get it. It's difficult when you are in the minority and can't pass laws, but at least say something and call attention to it, to what's going on. That goes not very far, but it goes a longer way than just capitulating or completely rolling over for this Republican hostile takeover. So that's been frustrating to watch on a day-to-day basis. But none of this is surprising me. They're doing what they said they were going to do. They're doing what they outlined in their policy memo, even if they say Project 2025 is not their policy memo. It is their policy memo. And we have to assume that unless somebody opposes them in a strong, sincere way, that they are going to aim to implement everything in Project 2025.
Me personally, I think, and I know that there are so many people who don't vote, who are unregistered, that even a gerrymander can't stop a blue wave if every single person voted. If we had 70%. Okay, in Hungary, Orban did a gerrymander on the entire country. Not only did he do a gerrymander on the entire country, he also had power over voting poll places. He also did the foolishness that they're doing now, like putting state troops and intimidation. And they had like 70% of the population vote, and that was enough to kick him out. No, there was not a gerrymander or an intimidation. There was not enough. If we had 70% voter participation, I'm willing to say, yeah, I believe that we can get the right people in there. Here's the other problem here's the issue I have with that. Who cares? We did it already. We won already. We won. We got the rights. We got the law passed. We got it put in the books. And 15 minutes after getting it put in the books, the soul of this racist shithole went straight to the Supreme Court and stayed there for as long as it took to get it undone. I'm not saying I don't believe in voting, because that would be stupid to give up the right freely that they want to take from me so readily. What I'm saying is, I started with Malcolm X, and that was for a reason. The correction needs to be big enough to reflect the reality in which we live. Does that make sense? I don't have that, but I know that people are waiting for that.
I think that's a really important thing to say, but just to piggyback off of Olivia and to give people hope, Viktor Orban is not in power anymore. He was defeated, okay? Massive voter turnout is the answer, though. We need to look. I was just doing a little research. In 1964, Freedom Summer was out there. It was how I wasn't alive then, and I was not part of the civil rights leadership movement. That's how American civil rights leaders got so many people registered to vote, and how civil rights would eventually move forward was they encouraged massive voter turnout. That's the part of this thing. It's, you gotta organize, register, educate, and mobilize. Those are the 3 steps that I tell people.
Yeah.
In Missouri, we have that as a step plan. So not to just besmirch on, what you were making, Olivia, which is a very valid point about Project 2025, but to give hope, they were defeated, and we can do that.
Yes, here. It did take 16 years, though. So it wasn't like an overnight defeat. It was a gradual building. So we have to start building now.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, if we're being like super like brass tacks, no bullshit, like we really should have been building 30 years ago when, 35, 40 years ago when the Republicans started, building up this, the Heritage Foundation movement that we're seeing come to fruition today. But all told, the only like clear solution I think that we can all agree on is that like we need to win, but we also need to win so big that it can't be, like, you can't argue with it, which is, what happened with Viktor Orban in Hungary. That's, that's always sort of been the thing with gerrymanders. The problem isn't necessarily the gerrymander itself. The problem is the mentality that consistent voter disenfranchisement leads to. And that's trying to, convince people that they need to get out of their houses and be persistent in their, in their demands that not only will they be given the ability to vote, but that their vote will be counted in a fair and free manner. But, as far as, what the things that I've been reading about this, and like, obviously, like, I'm not a gerrymander scholar or anything like that. I'm just, I'm an activist and a content creator and, other things, but like, I do get paid for my pattern recognition skills. So there is that. But like, the problem too with like the systematic attacks on like the VRA, not to circle back to this too much, but it is, it's a sickness.
That's what we're talking about today.
That affects all of this, right? So like in 2024, the Brennan Center released like research studies, as they do. They're a think tank. But like they released studies that like after the 2013 turnover of Section 5 of the VRA, not only was there a broadening gap nationwide in a decreased turnout in marginalized communities, Black, Brown, etc., but in those counties that were specifically impacted by that Supreme Court decision, I think it was Shelby County, there was an even bigger uptick.
Shelby County versus Holden.
Yeah, and it was after that decision, there was an even bigger uptick, even more than like the generalization of the lack of voter turnout from marginalized communities. So like there is an impact to these decisions. So one could say if that pattern holds, like now that we've seen Section 2 like come down, then like we need to work even harder to try to like not only bring back those voters who have been so disenfranchised from the first decision, but now like that we have to combat that demoralization in one way or another. And that's not a problem that like me, a white lady, is ever going to be able to like introspectively see the answer to. Like, I need to branch out to my marginalized brothers, sisters, and siblings to say, what can we do to serve you better?
And, I think to your point, the spin up of Shelby County versus Holder, in case anybody doesn't know, like what the lead up was you had southern states in particular, Louisiana, Alabama, Arkansas, Mississippi, Georgia, and South Carolina were all part of what was, known as pre-clearance. Those were the states that fell underneath Section 5, and under Shelby County versus Holder, what it did was it defeated pre-clearance essentially. And it, to a degree, I understand where Shelby County was coming from, but we, as Kelly pointed out, just because you have data and metrics that are trending positively doesn't mean you destroy the legal system apparatus that brought it to that successful place. Ginsburg said it best in her decision, or in her dissent, from Shelby County versus Holder. She said it's the equivalent of standing out in a rainstorm, holding up an umbrella, and then putting down your umbrella because you're not getting hit by rain. That's the equivalent of what Shelby County was. It was a protection. Of course, minorities were able to register in equivalent numbers because they finally had the apparatus to do so. Removing the protection, removing the umbrella allows for all of these poll taxes to come back in. And we're already seeing that through the SAVE Act. It allows for literacy tests to come back. It allows for citizenship requirements and things like that, forefathers. And now they're challenging under the 14th, not only due process, but they're challenging birthright citizenship as well. Again, these are all conspiratorially connected to address the electoral system here in the United States. And I fear that, unless Democrats understand, and I don't want to lay it all on liberals and progressives, because it's not. We need to be able to communicate our message to enough people to mobilize them off the couch. Now, I'm running here in the 4th. Last cycle in 2024, the couch won the election where I'm at. 208,000 people stayed at home. 196,000 voted for the Republican, and just under 100,000 voted for the Democrat. So that's the work. We got to mobilize people off the couches. We got to find a way to bring people together again. I don't like this fracture between the far left and moderate and centrist. I think the far left and moderate and centrist need to come together and recognize this is too big to turn into these tribalistic piss matches that I frankly don't care about. I care about single parents being able to take care of young families. I care about my family not being hunted down in schools and churches and in gymnasiums. I care about your families being able to access groceries and not have to pay $6 for a gallon of gas. That's what I care about. And I think like today, Republicans are just, if we really understand, like to Olivia's point, this is born out of how they intend to stay in power longer than expected, or longer term, or rig elections to help them,
What do you think of the argument that I've seen some scholars make, or at least just broadly speaking, that like there is a limit to the amount of gerrymandering that they can reasonably do before it has diminishing returns for them overall?
I think that's a very valid argument. I mean, over in Louisiana, that was part of the case, was that one of the second black majority district was a district that stretched all the way across the state of Louisiana. So yes, it was continuous, but was it actually compact? How did people from disparate parts of the state, and I'm living in Missouri, so we have Kansas City up here, 250 miles away is the bottom of my congressional district. It snakes like an kind of like an S-ish shape across the bottom of Missouri.
So it's like the original monster of Essex.
Yeah. It really is. It really is. It's ridiculous. Yes, it really is. And it's very annoying because it's just, having to drive that 200. And in fact, that's why I'm on the phone with the courts today to try and intervene and to state, my voice as a candidate has been uniquely harmed separate from our voter. For me, I detrimentally relied on the previous constitutionally drawn maps, right? I started my race running in the 5th. I built a race geared toward that audience, a metropolitan specific audience, an urban audience primarily. But now today, I went from one county and a portion of another, so 2 counties, we'll say, to now over 14. And several of those counties are cut in half. So it's sort of, how do we make sure that people within, over in the House District of Missouri 19, you have one House district that's been split into 3 congressional districts. One school district now is in 3 separate congressional districts. Who fights for the school? Who gets money for that region? Who do they go to for resources? Do you go to all 3? That's part of the problem that, we're not really accepting here. And what the Republicans are happy to insert is this dose of chaos that causes us as liberals and progressives to do all of this, squirrel and spin, when the reality is organize, register, educate, mobilize. That's our biggest opportunity. And then when I get into office, and you need to find candidates who are committed to this, you need to find candidates who are committed to legislation that is independent redistricting commissions as a mandatory, and then banning redistricting or gerrymandering, partisan gerrymandering and racial gerrymandering as law, like Democrats have tried to do multiple times.
So here, this is the deal. Let's talk about, I'm going to give a long-term internal strategy here. And this goes exactly to what you were saying about this ridiculous left versus left crap. And this is what I want to see. This is what I don't see on the left. That part.
Yeah.
Yeah, that part.
I think we talked about this the last time also. I brought up the Federalist Society as in every law school. There is no Democrat equivalent.
There is none. Well, because, one of the main reasons why there is none is because if you put one up, there'll be a fucking leftist over there saying that they didn't like this part of it and that part of it. And that this part wasn't good enough for black folks, or this part didn't do enough for women, or this part said the wrong word. They didn't mean leftist, they meant progressive. Oh, no, but this isn't really progressive. This is Marxist. No, but the book says this and that, and fuck shit. While we lose our rights. It's full of fucking privileged people is the reason why. But for some reason, I love my leftist people, man, I do. But for some reason, that racism and that hate is much more galvanizing than the thought that I know is going into trying to be right, trying to be helpful. But without this, without that right there that you see on the screen, look at that shit. There should be a Democratic Party or a Marxist revolution or a feminist society or a pro-black union. God damn it, anything in every high school. This is a long-term thing. But I need Congress people. I need people who have power and say so to say, yeah, I'm going to start that. I'm going to start one. And anybody who wants to be a part of it, join. And everybody else, shut the fuck up. Do not sign a pact, sign a document. If you don't like it because it's not feminist enough, I'm sorry. We need this. Because it's also going to help you, I promise. If you don't like it because it's not black enough, I'm sorry. But we're doing this because it's also going to help you. We need that. I need a congressperson to say, I'm willing to start that. Start the club. Start the thing. I need the fireworks too. What do you say, Jordan?
I think you're right. I've been pretty on my game for the last 15 months running this race on the ground. I tell people all the time, I put 34,000 miles on my vehicle already. I've been in colleges. I attempt to get near high schools. Unfortunately, here in Missouri, some people are very particular about. But then you see maps like this, and it's like, no, you're not really in particular about politics in schools. You're particular about Democrats in schools,
right,
not conservatives. So let's call it what it is. And I think in this state, we just have to do more of that. I am a Democrat. I am a proud Democrat. But I'm a Missouri Democrat. And I charge people up with that language. You're a Missouri Democrat. You get to define what that means. For me, a Missouri Democrat stands on their own 2 feet. We stand up for every corner of the Constitution and all of her amendments, to include the Second Amendment. I'm so tired of all these conservative people thinking that we are these awful human beings. I do this one study question really in every town hall that I do, because I know that Republicans are often single ballot issue voters. So if any Republicans are brave enough to watch this channel, know that this Democrat is fighting for your Second Amendment rights as well, that I don't agree with overly taxing ammunition and things like that. But at the same time, let's talk about the other single ballot issue about abortion. I'm so tired of the Republicans characterizing every liberal as some kind of pro-abortionist. I've never even met a pro-abortionist. Mm-hmm. I've met people who have always said that women deserve the confidential right for that confidential communication between patient and provider. I believe in individual freedom and bodily autonomy. That's what I talk about. I don't want the government mandating what I can and cannot do with my body. Why should women accept the same? Mm-hmm. But when we talk about it and we say, we change the narrative also here in Missouri, because I call it what it is. They are pro-birth. We support life. Right. What a support life Democrat does is, number one, women always get the right to choose. Number two, we make sure that the incentive for life is greater. What's the number one barrier to family planning? Money. Financial, right? Financial. We can all admit to that. So why aren't we creating policies to exactly address the financial barriers? For me, I find that in a Medicare for All option, because I'm a support life Democrat. Support Life Democrats are also fighting for SNAP, WIC, and school meals all across our country. Support Life Democrats are also fighting to make sure, like I am, that we have a national milk bank to help single moms and working moms who have to go right back to work, because in our country, we still don't have maternity or paternity leave, which, by the way, Support Life Democrats argue for maternity and paternity leave.
Brother, let me tell you something.
The argument with our language, that I am a Missouri Democrat, I am a Support Life Democrat. It requires the other party to then use our language.
My goal in all of this was to stay angry. God damn it, Jordan, I am not angry, because that's right. That's what I'm talking about is, when are we going to get savvy? How can you have a Save America Act that destroys America?
Right.
Because they're better at using this language. When we actually have the truth on our side, you're a Support Life Democrat.
Let me finish up with that. As a Support Life Democrat, when we play it forward, think about it. When you force the other side to use your language, well, I'm pro-life and you're Support Life, what's the difference?
What are you talking about?
That's the point. Confuse them. Confuse them. This is a tactic we use in the courtroom, guys. Confuse them. Make them use your language, whatever that is. So if you're in Georgia, you're a Georgia Democrat, and you get to define what that means. I've defined what a Missouri Democrat is. But use that language point, and it's working here because we defeat those single ballot issues. And why this matters and how it all ties into what we're talking about now is because the Republican Party has got this demonized version of who we are and what we believe in and what we don't believe in. And when we can show ourselves authentically to them, that we are Americans just like you, and you can vote with us. That doesn't mean you have to accept everything part and parcel. I'm not asking you to be a Democrat. I'm asking you to vote with your morals this time. I'm asking you to vote, instead of with your wallet, vote with your conscience and with your heart. Because our wallets really aren't getting us to a policy that really treats people like people, is it?
I'll tell you what, this sounds really great. I love that. It makes me feel good on the inside. I'm not sure how anybody on the other side is going to care that much once they go back to church after you say that, because I've seen it happen. They're like, that is real, and they go back, and that saucy indoctrination just flows over them in the community that makes them feel accepted. But I'd like to know from the two women on the panel here, how offensive was my rant about something not feminist enough for you? Because I also included Black, I will include LGBTQ, I'll include whatever, to get to that map that does this. Because none of the people who do this, none of these people believe in any of that stuff that they're saying. None of them. Everyone in there has a different reason. There's a 2A guy, there's a anti-abortion, there's a pro-life person, or there's a in here
Bitcoin.
There's a Bitcoin guy, there's a I'm capitalist and I hate socialism person. In every one of these things, how offensive is that language, Olivia? I'll go to you as the strategist, because you may be the smartest person on language when it comes to that.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not offended by it. I've actually been more offended that we don't have organizations like this. I think the only person that I have seen that is attempting to do something that's rallying against TPUSA is Z. Cohen Sanchez, who is running National Ground Game. And I think she's the only one that I know of right now that is actually running a program to try to counter what is going on. But I mean, it's difficult as one person doing that, building that out. And I know she has influencers that travel around with her that help, but it's been interesting to watch that come together. But I mean, that's really all we have, to my knowledge. And I think as long as we are too nitpicky about the single issue that we want resolved, we're not going to be able to move forward at all.
Kelly?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not offended by anything that you said. I believe in, I take a pretty firm position of harm mitigation overall. And I don't know, but as I've been sitting and listening and stuff like that, and I've done my own research into far right extremist indoctrination and stuff like that. I don't know, could be interesting to use some of their own messaging to turn it on their head, to be like, this is a political indoctrination group. Why are they indoctrinating children into political ideology? They're just supposed to go to school to learn. Don't your parents know what they're doing?
Well, here's another thing then. That's a long term. I need a better plan. I need an idea that can go beyond what has already been torn down, to give these people some hope to vote for.
Right.
How would the idea go if, say, Joel is here and he's in California, and you say, you know what? For every state that does this ridiculous thing, our state is going to do incentives for Black people to come here. How about you lose? You don't want them to vote, so you lose them. You lose their taxes. You lose their workforce. How about we are going to do, especially DEI here? Matter of fact, we're going to give some free housing to those who have been disenfranchised in Tennessee. That is something that I think is a response that reflects the actual reality of the situation. Lawsuits and all those things are cool, but black people don't believe you anymore because we realize that all of that can be undone. You know what can't be undone? An innovative idea like there's 4 blue states and you're already donor states because all of the red states are welfare states already, right? That say, you know what? Not only are we going to ensure that those states die the fuck off, since you're going to do this, and there's no way that we can win this except for getting 70%. Until we get the long-term strategy done, we're going to incentivize people of color who have been disenfranchised to come here like daggone refugees. You get housing for a year. We're going to go ahead and give you help to get a job and work. That's something that I'd like to see. Is that possible?
It's interesting you bring that up because there are already, you especially during COVID, you would have seen like certain states had more Republican-focused policy and agenda that was lenient toward public health measures. And people actually moved to those states like Florida and Texas. That was a big draw for a lot of families to move to Texas. And they grew in massive population in Texas in particular. And in fact, if you look at the statistics, what we're worried about is that the South is going to gain about 10 more seats at 2030 census because they gained so much in population during COVID. And so many of the rural communities did as well. Remote work allowed for people to move out of cities and de-urbanize, density changed, and things happened. I think what we have to do moving forward to prevent this sort of regionalization, and I hear what you're saying, and I think you're going to see states doing that. I think you're going to see the opposite also, where you're going to see more conservative red states being redder and blue states becoming bluer. I don't know if that's a strong thing to hope for, but people need safety. So, I mean, people deserve to live a life where they feel like they can have a future. So if that's the case, I would empower states like Missouri or California, or Missouri's not going to do it, unfortunately, but California, New York, or somewhere in the north, or Washington, Oregon, to be more inclusive in that way. I think that is an interesting way to attract those audiences, to make sure that they actually do have a voice and that they will be counted in the community as an equal. Because who the hell would want to stay in Georgia if you didn't have to? No besmirching Georgia. I know you're there. I think
Fuck
that
Georgia. I'm done with all of it.
You're done with all of it. Okay,
all of it. All of it.
I'm done with Georgia. I mean, they're. I like John Ossoff and Raphael Warnock and Stacey Abrams. Everyone else, I don't know. I'm still like, I don't know. Georgia's hopeful.
I'm down with all means necessary to get people to act right.
Well, I mean, there are incentives for veterans, right? We have incentives all across the separate states to attract veterans to retire there and live there. So I see no difference.
So how do you think that would, I'm trying to think of the way to word this, right? Because like the GOP is like stuck on this sort of antiquated idea of states' rights, which was like a big concern at the time of our nation's founding, obviously. So how does that shake out if, say, we do like flip the table and are like, okay, well, you're so fucking concerned about states' rights. So like all of these states start amending their own constitutions to allow for all of this positive change that we would want to see. Like, how does that shake out federally?
Like moving forward from this point?
Yeah, like say we live in a world where all of these states, like they amend their constitutions. They're doing
yes and no, and I hate to give the lawyer answer of it depends.
No, I want the lawyer answer. That's what I want.
Okay, so the lawyer answer is it depends. So we're going to give a state like Missouri, and Missouri has in our state constitution that you can only redistrict after a census. Now we're currently hearing cases tomorrow in the Supreme Court to discuss like redistricting after a census. Is that in the immediate or can that be in the mid-decade? because the census was conducted. Are they going to rely on that census to redraw these maps in 2025? I don't think they did. There's no clear evidence that they did. It looks as if they were asked at the behest of the president. So moving forward, it'll depend on the state constitution. So in states like Missouri, where it's enshrined in the constitution about redistricting, California has something similar. There are several states. I think New Jersey has an independent commission. Nevada, I think, has an independent commission as well. So in those states, like, it wouldn't necessarily take effect like that because you have triggers in the state constitution. But in states like, say, the hypothetical state of Franklin, if in Franklin they do not have those same protections, then in the hypothetical state of Franklin, it could revert back to what it was prior to Shelby versus Holder, prior to the VRA. And you could see all these terrible policies come into place, like literacy tests, economic tests, land ownership tests, things like that, poll taxes, and worse.
Like the trigger laws, right? Like we had something like that when Roe was overturned in Arizona, where we had all of these exceptionally antiquated, anti-abortion and birth control laws that would have been triggered by Roe being overturned.
Right, exactly that. So it would have been, it'd be something very similar if states do have trigger laws or shotgun laws that go into effect after. In some states, we're probably doing that work, like you had already mentioned, Kelly, 30 years ago, when the Conservative Party was organizing and trying to restructure themselves in a way that they could rebuild for this century. I think, as Democrats, what we can also see done differently is we need to get away from these purity tests. What I see differently in our Democratic Party today, which I'm embracing, is we see flawed candidates, not perfect suits. I don't want to see a suit. I'm tired of your suit. I don't care about your suit. I want to see your scars. I want to see your tears. I want to see your experiences. I want to see your heart. And if you're wearing a suit, frankly, I don't know if I can see all of that. I want to know that you were able to get on the ground. Like, I'm running in a district with 6 other Democrats. None of them have been boots on the ground like I have. And it's infuriating. It's infuriating that none of the Republicans nor the Libertarian has done anything. Now, I'm confident in my race that I'm the standout. But the point remains that, we need people engaged and ready to do this work. And we need to lower the barrier of entry. If the barrier for entry is you need to be a lawyer, a doctor, or a big business leader to be a Democrat politician, we've got to lower that down. Because frankly, I think we need more school teachers, truck drivers, farmers.
All right, hey, we have Joel. Joel, I'm glad you're here because this is really for states like New York and California. Specifically, for a time like now, if I live in California, or if I'm a congressman from California or New York, I'm proposing that you say, if you come from Tennessee and they just took you out of the vote because they're racist, we're offering this to black people who have been disenfranchised, like you're a refugee. We're going to give you this housing, this stipend. We're putting these things in place. We're doing this stuff and this stuff to get you out of there. Because we'll see how much they hate you when they can't use you for cheap labor anymore. We'll see how much they hate you when you no longer pay taxes there anymore and they're already welfare states. We'll see how much they hate you when they got to get the people in the trailer parks to work more than the black people, and they don't have black people to blame it on anymore. Right? That's what I'm saying is that feasible? Or is a pipe dream? And then, Joel, I'll let you answer that question and tell me who you are after Olivia gives that answer. I'll give you a chance to introduce yourself in just a second. Olivia, talk to me.
Okay. So as far as states implementing their own policies I think blue states, we're going to see them implement policies. I'm already watching New York implement, particularly New York City implement policies that I think are going to benefit people there. We'll just have to keep an eye out and see how that goes. And if they're successful, particularly the one that I've been fascinated by is the grocery stores that Mom
Well,
Donnie
well,
has. So, I mean, I don't think it's a pipe dream. Like talking about the grocery stores in New York, he's not buying up every grocery store. He's putting grocery stores in select areas to drive down with the intent. It's kind of what we were supposed to do with healthcare with a public option to drive down the cost of healthcare, but the Democrats capitulated back in 2012 when this first came around. Mamdani is trying to do this with groceries. And so if you bring down the cost of groceries, if you bring down the cost of living, you can attract people to these larger, more progressive cities with better quality of life for people. So yes, I do think it's possible. I think we're going to see different states implement different policies that get to a similar point. But also we're going to see people in redder states go more conservative and potentially lose more people. I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see how that unfolds,
and
and what's going to happen federally if the federal government weighs in on some of these laws as well and
Jo-
policies.
Joel Lava from the California 30th District. What say you, my friend?
Hey, thanks for having me. The topic you're talking about, there's so many layers to it. I'll try to hit them all super quick. What Olivia just said, while the idea of like a diaspora of people out is cool, we're not going to get them all to go. And then, like she said, those places get even more extreme, which is bad for representation and bad for people on the left, including Black people who are still there. But it's a good idea. I mean, what if you could also take the opposite angle? Charles Blow of like New York Times is a big proponent of going back to the southern states, of having migration back to do the opposite, send more, like bring the
Yeah, I've
army
heard
in.
that.
Bigger picture, what you're saying is one of the reasons I ran. One of is I just grew so frustrated with our current electeds going on TV and telling us how bad things are, and this is wrong, and this is unconstitutional, and this is being broken, and not providing solutions. I'm like, our elected leaders are not reporters. We know things are bad. We don't need you to go on TV or tweet how bad things are. We need you to tell us what action you're taking. And that's one of the many things that pushed me over the edge to run. What is just, I got so frustrated with, don't tell me that they're like peeing, the Judge Judy, don't pee on my head and tell me it's raining. Well, don't pee on my head and tell me you're peeing on my head. It's like, tell me how to stop it. So I am, I'm running as a lifelong Democrat. I'm an activist. I am a union member because I'm a director in the DGA, which is obviously not the same as like a pipe fitting union, but it's still a union, and I'm pro-union. I am a father of 2 beautiful children, and I rent also here in Burbank. And I'm running against an incumbent Democrat. I'm not going, I don't believe in the circular firing squad. So she's a good person. The problem is she's an administrator. She's from the Clintonian style of keep your head down and write sternly worded letters. And that's about it. And I'm here to draw outside the lines, play by the new rules of the 21st century. I'm not here to be a thought leader or visionary, though I do have thoughts and visions, but I'm here to be a hammer, and I see solutions as nails, and I don't care whose toes I step on and what norms and unwritten rules of politics I break, because I'm not here to be a career politician. I'm here to get things done or die trying, although I don't want to die. I mean that metaphorically. So yeah, that's my quick story. I could answer questions, and I'm sorry I'm late, but hey, I gave more time to everyone else.
That's all right, my friend. So I'll say this. Both of the ideas of going back to the South, I've read that book. So I've seen that playbook. And I'm not saying that it's wrong. And then when I say, okay, well, what about this idea of incentivizing people to come from other states to your state? what I'm really hoping is that there comes a breaking point where you can only be so racist and also eat, right? Like I think that the reason why they can do this is because they believe, kind of like the Democratic Party believes, that the black folks will just always be there. And they're darn right on the Democratic Party side, because the Republican Party is racist. Absolutely, unequivocally, neo-Nazi, Confederacy, racist, white supremacy, slavery, racist. So yeah, fine, Democratic Party. Yeah, fine. How about you play on that and make it so that they can't eat? The more they stay racist, the less they eat. And I have a feeling that they'll break before anything else can happen. But I don't know. That's just one idea. Here's the last piece of it, and we'll end, because we have to end soon. I do want to get you into this conversation, Joel. Here's the last piece of it. This is what happened in Ohio. I went there to cover this race, and this is what happened.
Malcolm Ritchie here, former Democratic candidate for the Ohio 6th District congressional race. And unfortunately, I lost the primary. And there's a lot of stuff going on here that makes no sense to most of the Democratic Party in the Ohio 6th District. That a candidate that did no work, raised no money, had no volunteer staff, did no real campaigning, won the race. And this isn't crying over spilt beer here for Malcolm Ritchie. There were two other candidates that came closer, and they also worked very, very hard. We raised, between the four of us, serious candidates, we raised the issues. We talked about the most critical things going on in this country, and either one of two things or both happened. Uninformed voters went en masse and voted for the only female on the ticket, or in a combination of thereof, many Republicans went to vote in the Democratic primary.
This is sticky. I know. I was there. And that's why I'm here, because I get to the sticky problems, man. I do this because we need to talk about it. This happened. This lady came in late, had no events. The one event she did have, she spoke to herself in the microphone. She had no mailers, no texting. She had no campaign. She had no campaign. No campaign. No money, no campaign, no nothing. Then the people who have been putting in the work for over a year, who I've been watching, who I have on a documentary documenting the work, the marches, the fights, the hugging babies, the kissing babies and shaking hands, the whole thing, the money raising, the Act Blue, and she won. I think that we have, especially in small towns, a gigantic problem with uninformed voters. I believe they went in there because we also spoke to the people who were at the polling place, who work at the polling place, and they seemed to think that it wasn't the Republicans that came in there and just voted to screw up the Democratic primary because it's an open primary. It was the people who just saw a woman at the top, voted for it. On normal occasions, that would be okay. Unfortunately, this woman is crazy. For the one time that they did that, I can say that because I'm not running and I wasn't running. I saw her for 5 minutes and I was like, who is she? And they were like, she was the candidate. And I was like, get the F out of here. Are you kidding me? Not all there. To the point where they were saying, whatever you do, do not speak to public. Do not speak to TV. Do not answer questions. That was their advice to her. Don't go on TV. Do not take interviews. Don't open your mouth, please. Oh, my God. That's the advice that they gave to the Democratic candidate. Now, we've got to educate. How can we fix that? I'm giving this to the people who are running for office now. Where's the Democratic Party in educating the Democrats? If you have, once you're registered, which you are in Ohio, once you vote before, they had the largest Democratic turnout and wasted it on a candidate who cannot speak. Talk to me. I got nothing. Whoever wants to go.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Joel. I'll let you go first, sir.
Well, I certainly I'm in a situation where there's 7 total candidates running, including the incumbent, and I knew going in that the machine would support her and all that. What I didn't realize I was naive about is I just assumed there's like a political infrastructure to help candidates. Like there would be a debate and publications would talk to us. It is crickets. They will not hold. There's no. I can't run a debate because it's unethical as a candidate. But I worked with another candidate to try and get one going, and we cannot get anyone to do it. And no news, not even podcasts until this very recently this month because it's heated election time. But no newspaper, no organizations, no one wants to talk to us.
We'll hold a debate. If not here,
Right.
on Sons of Liberty,
Our
we'll hold a debate.
Thank you. But our thinking is because they don't have. For instance, I just spoke at a civic group, and they feel like because they had me speak, now they have to invite everyone, and now they have to invite like these crazy Republicans, and they don't even want to talk to them, but they feel like so people don't want to touch it because it's an incumbent and 6 kooky people. Like they don't. That's just like before they even know anything. So that's a huge thing we're running into, and that's probably part of it. I think I don't want to touch some of the other parts of it right now because I don't know all the details, but the low information voter is clearly, obviously, it's like an eternal problem. It's how we got President Trump, but it's also in the primaries. I don't know what to say because you have usually more highly motivated and informed people in the primary. So I can't speak specifically to that, but it is frustrating, and very possibly those other good candidates who were actually putting in the work canceled each other out to the benefit of this one woman who won.
Yeah, I would agree. I'm in a pretty wide primary myself. There are 7 Democrats, 1 Libertarian running against the Republican incumbent, who is Mark Alford, and he even has two primary challengers. So there's a lot of people in the race right now. What I am running up against is such a wide field of Democrats. There's an equivocation that's happening. It's a little hurtful, to be quite honest with you. I mean, I've been doing this like the gentleman in the video had kind of made clear. He had put in the sweat equity. He had put boots on the ground. I've been doing that same thing. Like I said, running for 15 months, over 34,000 miles on my vehicle. I've raised, literal tons of food. Like I want to say it's closer to 3,500 pounds of food that we've donated to the Kansas City Public School Districts. Disaster relief after tornadoes touched down in 3 of our municipalities in the 4th Congressional District. Doing the hard work, truly doing the hard work and putting in the sweat equity. What I get frustrated about, is that there are now Democrats who've entered the race. One gentleman, he's a radio host, and he runs a radio program for the armed forces. And he himself admits he's never been a veteran himself. He's not a veteran. He's never served. But he supports disabled veterans and all this other stuff. And so I haven't had the opportunity to speak to him yet, but, it's kind of counter to your message, isn't it? If you support disabled veterans, why are you entering a race instead of supporting a disabled veteran? We have a couple of women in the race here who are really wonderful. Ashley is fantastic, but there's another woman, her name is Jeanette. She ran in this district prior and didn't generate out any additional votes or percentage points whatsoever. And even though she's been running about as long as I have, to her credit, she has failed to raise the statutory minimum to even file an FEC candidacy profile, which is $5,000.
Yeah.
If you haven't raised $5,000 in over a year and a half of running, there's issues with the campaign to be addressed. Yeah. So I wish in our state we did have more of a vetting process, because there are also people in my race right now who have outwardly, and they're on video, harassing Senator Klobuchar and harassing Congressman Cleaver to the point that security guards had to get involved and the senator and the congressman had to leave. This gentleman is still running on this ticket as a Democrat. And then he also posts things that say, like, drop the Democrats now. They don't care about you. And when it was brought up to the party leadership here in Missouri, they were like, well, we try to not put our thumb on the scale. And it's like, I can respect that to a degree. At some point, now we are dealing with a circus rather than an organized political process that will allow centrists, moderates, Democrats, far left people, whatever, to get elected and to do the right thing, to undo these hurtful, hateful policies. I think our Democratic Party overall, nationally, from what I have seen, I had a lot of hope for Ken Martin, and I still hope he can turn it around. I just don't see it. There was supposed to be all of this rural money coming down to support rural down ballot candidates. That never happened. I have not seen it. Neither have any of the candidates that I support across my congressional district. So I think we're seeing infrastructural problems with the Democrats not really fully understanding the areas that they need to make ground up at. Now, I'm not California. I did live in California and I earned my law degree there. But I'm not California, I'm Missouri. So for us, our population, it is a little different. And you have to advocate a little differently here. I can't say everything I want to say. I have a phrase that I use for that. Sometimes to feed the most mouths, you have to close yours.
Yay.
And so
I like it.
For me, this state, this race, Democrats in general, I'm no longer going to rely on the MVP or the DNC to get the job done because they're not going to do it. And if you guys haven't noticed, we've been looking for our figurehead for how long? Who's going to lead the Democrat Party? Well, the fact that we're still asking the question, it's not Cory Booker. It's not Hakeem Jeffries. It's probably not Ken Martin. It's not going to be James Carville ever again. So that means
it's Chuck Schumer. It's Chuck Schumer, man.
It's not going to be Shoom. The Shoom's out. He's shooming out. He's shooming out.
God.
But you know what I mean? We got to chart our own destiny. So quit waiting for somebody else to write the way forward. It's up to us to write the way forward.
All right. It's time. It's time we're forced to go. I want to give the last word to Kelly and Olivia. And I need to make sure that you guys understand that the person on the ticket being a woman is not that she's a woman. It's that she didn't campaign. The people who were inside of the voting places said it's the difference. If there's something different about a candidate, the low information voter will vote for the different thing. If it was all woman and there was one man, they would have voted for him. If they were all regular names and one had an Italian name, they would have voted for that, right? So they said that's how these people have been working there for like the past 20, 30 years, and they said that's how it goes when people who come in but don't really know who they're voting for. It's the one that's different. Whatever the different one is will win if that is the voter base. So that's just an explanation. But I'd like to hear you guys' final thoughts, closing thoughts, you guys.
So by and large, I would say that's true. I do a lot of local elections in Fairfax County, Virginia, and that is typically a highly informed electorate. But the further down the ballot you get, the less informed the voters are. So we had some issues with some of the school board candidates because it's just a huge pot of people that run. I think we had like 8 or 9. And you pick your top 3 for the at-large. And so we had a couple candidates get elected, and now they're sitting on the board, and we're trying to figure out, a way to make sure that they do not stay on the board this time around. But because they were paying attention to their congressional races and their state ledge races, they forgot the rest of the ticket. And that's a very common, but also when you're looking in more rural communities, people aren't thinking about voting all the time. Like even your most highly informed voter probably knows there's an election coming up, but they don't know who's running, what they stand for, unless it's the incumbent. And so I think that played a huge role in what happened. I also went to the FEC because a lot of my consulting practice is not just on messaging, but it's also fundraising. And even though Malcolm was in a situation where he had raised the most of all the challenger candidates, it still wasn't enough to get the message out. I mean, in order to even get now there is some infrastructure issues going on in the Democratic Party infrastructure. That there's no secret. That's not a secret at all. But to get their attention, you have to minimum raise 6 figures in a race like that. And none of the candidates on the ticket, except for the incumbent, which is common, had 6 figures. So it was going to be a challenge from the get-go for him. But he was the one best suited to do it. I will say that. He was the one best suited to do it.
We tried.
It's hard, and it's hard in these rural communities where Democrats are not prioritizing those type of districts.
Kelly Kells.
Hi. Yeah, and I mean, just sort of piggybacking on that too, like just sort of like patternistically, I've noticed a lot of like those, older, I would say specifically like older, like sort of traditionalist Democrats, like not like middle-aged and older. I don't know the demographic in this area, but like that's sort of the pattern in their voting strategy, just from like talking to people like that, where it seems like their general vibe is like if they're not sure of who to vote for, like if it's not a candidate they don't know about, like they look to vote for either like a woman or a name that looks like a woman, or they look for a name that looks like it belongs to like the person of another community, Black, brown, etc. Because I think like the general vibe, and like I can't speak for them, but the answer that I have been given by other people is like they want to vote for those people because they feel like they're doing them a better service by giving them a leg up. So I mean, it could be something like that too. Olivia, what's your take on that?
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I have worked with candidates who have been running in crowded fields that they'll have another candidate running that has a Hispanic name, and people will gravitate towards that candidate because that represents their community. Or women, and people want more women in office, so they'll gravitate towards the woman candidate. So I definitely think that does play a role in voter psychology.
And usually that would be okay, I'd guess, until you get the one crazy one that is now going to be the poster child for DEI. And they're going to ruin it. It's going to, oh my God. Anyway, guys, we got to go, but we have learned. Let me speak to the camera here. This was a little more aggressive. This was a little bit different tone than the normal roundtables. But that's the point why it doesn't suck. This isn't CNN. It's not MSNBC. We don't have pre-written points on a screen in front of us. Sometimes you can be angry, and that's okay. It's called being human. We're not robots. But at the end of every round table, there's something you should have learned or something you can take away. One of the things I've taken away from this one is the support life Democrat. Am I right on that one? That's what you said?
Yes, sir.
Support life Democrat. Fucking genius. That's correct. I'm a support life Democrat. And let me see you go against it. All right? Using the language properly. Another thing is the ideas are a lot more than moving here or moving there. We still have to come up with a systemic response. You still have to make these things happen in the high school like TPUSA does. We need a stronger infrastructure. Every single candidate on here says the same thing. So take this to your ballot box. Take this to your Capitol. Take this to your activism when you go out and to your phone call when you make it. We're here to learn these things and to come away with something. I hope that you came away with something out of this one and not just me being pissed off, because I am. This country is racist as hell. And they never lose the chance to remind us. But I'm also here to remind you, if you're feeling that way, Black people, most of the people who were in the courtroom or who were in the Capitol building fighting and yelling and blowing horns were white. Tennessee's not the same. Those lawmakers are, but I don't think it's going to go the way they think it's going to go. And unfortunately, when you get rid of the legal recourses for people, illegal recourses become viable. Yeah, I'm not advocating for that. I'm telling you how human history goes. The pitchforks and the torches aren't something that I make up or you direct people to do. These are things that are calculable. And we're not going back to slavery. So you make the assessment, and the unintended consequences will fall at your lap. Tennessee, Louisiana, South Carolina. For the rest of us, we march, we vote. We vote in numbers that they can't ignore. We use places like Hungary as an example of how to do it. We do not lie down. We do not give up. But I don't think they're ready for what's coming. Drill Sergeant, on your left. Thank you guys so much for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Go, 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 resist, resist, oh, resisting, resist, fuck this shit's going down, that's right here, right now, the political drain, just the news you need, nothing driven by greed, no sipping Kool-Aid.